Welcome to Precision Animal Training, where we teach big lessons through the lens of getting precise science-based behavior. I'm Kier like your ear, Kirsten, Crawl like a baby Kraljevic, animal trainer, behavior nerd, and your host. This is a show about real, lasting change. The science of precision, the power of pursuing perfect timing, the art of truly seeing and shaping behavior. Whether you're working with chickens, dogs, dolphins, parrots, horses, or even ourselves. Expect real stories from the field, timeless principles that transfer across species, and practical insights you can apply immediately. Because if you can train a chicken with clarity, kindness, and razor-sharp precision, you can train almost anything. So grab a notebook. This is your personal masterclass in curiosity, mechanics, and true behavioral understanding. Welcome to Precision Animal Training, and we're coming to you from the Gulf Coast of Alabama with the legendary Dr. Bob Bailey. In this episode, we dive into the transformative history of animal training, tracing the Brelands' pioneering days, the rigorous demands of early animal care, and how their systematized methods reached across the globe. Discover why chickens became the gold standard for trainers, how Keller and Marian Breland built a culture of creativity, and the surprising roles their animals played, from coin-operated chicken shows to CIA missions and blockbuster TV commercials. You'll learn about real stimulus control, military contracts, and the innovative problem-solving that still shapes the industry today. If you're ready to rethink what you know about animal training, you don't want to miss this episode. Let's get started. Welcome back. I'm here with Dr. Bob Bailey, and we are actually still going over the modern day history of animal training. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Yeah, so we've gone through the formation of ABE. You can see how they've systematized training, and not only training, but the care of animals, right? The care of animals that they are shipping by train all over the country and by plane at this point as well, all over the world.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll get them talking, don't worry. So they're shipping them all over the world. These shows, the animals are interchangeable. They have a staff back at their facility in Hot Springs, Arkansas, with these trainers. Most of them, or all of them, Arkansas farm boys. Why not girls, Bob? Why not girls?
The work in those days was physically demanding, and not so much the training itself. But when a truck comes in with 16 tons of animal feed in 50 to 100 pound sacks, guess who gets to unload the feed sacks? And it just works out better for guys. Now, in the 1970s, we hired a couple of ladies, and they were big ladies, and they could handle their own.
There you go. And Marian is the president of the company. So, you know, it's a female-run company.
Yes. Now, Keller died in 1965.
Okay.
Prior to that, Keller was the titular head of the company. He was the president and chairman of the board.
So I think I'd like to go back a little bit into Keller's personality, what he was known for, and then I know he had meetings, creative meetings, just how he fostered creativity. Could you go a little bit into that?
Well, first off, Keller was, some people would say, a bombastic style promoter, but he was also technically pretty good. A very smart guy, a person who was very easy to make friends with. He was not shy. And he also was somebody whose mind worked at a mile a minute, and he didn't sleep very much. So let's say he enjoyed life. And he was the one who traveled. He was the front of the company. Marian pretty well ran the company itself, made it work. And Keller relied on her for that, but also shared very much that Marian was a part of the company, the idea part of the company. Now, Keller and Marian agreed with this. He was pretty well the idea man. He was the one who aimed the company in the direction that it was going to go. And they had no problems, particularly with that. Now, she could also tell when Keller would go off the deep end and maybe biting off a little bit more. And Keller was good about listening to her counsel well, maybe we ought to rethink that just a little bit. Maybe we ought to allow 6 months rather than 1 month. Anyway.
So at this point, I'm going to call them rock stars. They had some pretty good rock stars on their staff. They had Grant Evans helping them develop shows. He was the one in the...
Yes, Grant Evans was an unheralded technical genius, as far as I'm concerned. He was a cameraman, one of these... he belonged to the union, the camera union. And he's one of these that could read something and actually, after reading it, actually do it. He was very good that way. He was a motion picture cameraman in the Army, and a lot of the pictures that you might see in movies and newsreels and the like was actually shot by Grant Evans. I've seen a number of his shots.
Wow.
But anyway, he was the technical director.
Then they had another rock star, and I would say Kent Burgess. He was their head trainer.
Yeah, he was the director of training. He was in charge of the training of people, and he pretty well ran the show as far as how the training program worked. Now, in 1963, SeaWorld approached Kent Burgess and offered him the sun, moon, and sky if he would come aboard. And Kent presented this offer that SeaWorld made to him, and Keller said, "You'd be an idiot not to take that," because they gave him a house and car and all sorts of stuff, and tripled his salary. And anyway, the point is that although the Brelands were sad to see him go, because he was a great trainer. As far as I'm concerned, in terms of just looking at people, he was the finest all-around trainer I've ever seen.
Can you qualify that for me when you say that? What do you mean? Like, what does Bob Bailey mean when he says that I think that guy's the finest trainer I've ever watched?
Well, all round. Now, there might be a person who has worked with a particular kind of dog herding, let's say, that, well, maybe that person is better than Kent Burgess would be at that time. But Kent could take virtually any animal and in a very short period of time figure out what you need to do in order to get what you want from that animal. He was very, very good at that.
His observational skills must have been off the charts.
His observational skills were great. Kent was one who could train 12 chickens simultaneously, 4 to 6 rabbits, and a few ducks. And while he's doing all that, he's talking to you about the local fishing conditions.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
So Kent was very good. And SeaWorld was very fortunate to get him as their first trainer, because he really produced a program for SeaWorld that allowed them to train their trainers and expand. And of course, SeaWorld actually expanded their locations from San Diego to San Antonio to Orlando to Cleveland, and they expanded dramatically.
That's crazy. And again, it's all from the roots of this. I'm going to call it a small company now, even though it got to the point of 80 employees.
Well, we had at its peak about 100, half full part-time and half full-time. During the summertime, we expanded greatly because we had shows all over.
And you had a theme park, too. You added a theme park?
Yes, we built a theme park, and that was kind of fun. We built it in 100 days.
That's insane.
A 25-acre animal theme park with dolphins and sea lions and macaws and goats and sheep and deer and lots of things.
So they're really producing trained animals. They really have this crackerjack staff where the consistency is high across the staff. This isn't a fluke. This is their program. This is what they're producing. Did these trainers start on chickens? Where did the chickens come into this?
Well, the chickens, of course, started way back when in the 40s. And they were just fortunate, just that they happened to be there, so the Brelands used them. Since that time, the Brelands tried other animals, and I've tried lots of other animals for teaching people, and we always came back to chickens, found them to be by far the finest animals for teaching the fundamentals of training. And the Brelands tried, I tried finding other animals, and they're still by far the best animals for doing that.
And we definitely will go into more of that later. But I really want to bring up now, you called them prayer meetings, and they fascinate me. Keller held these meetings. Can you explain what they were like?
Early on, in the early 60s, when I visited ABE when I was director of training for the Navy, that I managed to attend a number of these meetings that Keller had. He called them prayer meetings. And they were wide-ranging. In any one day, we could be talking about cosmology, we could be talking about philosophy, we could talk about animal training, we could talk about mathematical modeling. It just depends on where the whimsy of the evening went, or if they happen to be working on a new show or discussing whether they should develop a new show, they would discuss that. So it could be practical, it could be rather impractical, wide-ranging material. Most of the time I listened. I did not contribute a lot during these prayer meetings because I was just interested, fascinated in what these people had been doing all this time. And again, the wide-ranging nature. And that would happen 2 to 3 nights a week.
That's interesting to me. And of course, I want to ask if there was alcohol involved, but I won't. I'll keep going. And I'll say, these people valued creativity. They were doing things with animals that nobody else was doing. So remember, it wasn't that people didn't have pet rabbits. It's that people couldn't get their pet rabbits to do, or their pet chickens to do, or ducks. What I want to drive home to the audience now is that it was not just these coin-operated, like Skinner boxes, right? Now they're taking this technology and they're working animals on movie sets, commercial sets for TVs and things, which is unpredictable if you've ever been around that environment. And they're also starting to pick up military contracts, which again are going to drive home just the duration of, stimulus control that they had, the distractions that they had to work with, and the distance that they were working these animals.
Well, as far as the commercials, we did stage work. There were plays being done in various cities around, and they sometimes involved animals. So we would train animals and then train the people there how to work with the animals. So they would be involved in stage plays. Commercials were a big market in that we would be producing 3, 4, 5 major commercials in 3 or 4 months. And they would inform us what they wanted for the commercials. And we would usually find out when we got there, they really didn't know what they want, and what they really wanted the animal to do was something they hadn't even talked to us about. I used to say that the producer that I was talking to on the phone was lying to me all the time because they didn't know what they wanted.
How did you prepare the animal for this type of situation?
Well, there's something called generalization, and that is that the animals that we would be shipping out to do these things would be trained to do so many things And there would always be something that's fairly close to what they want, and it's just a matter of changing circumstances a little bit, and adapting the animal, and just give our trainer 45 minutes or an hour, and usually able to deliver just essentially exactly what the person wanted. We were recalled many times for commercials with the same companies because we were known for producing reliable behavior. And when our animals showed up, you told us what you wanted. If what you had told us before is actually what you want, you're going to get it first shot. That's what we were really known for. Is one shot, it's over with, finished. You got it. It's in the can. You can go home. If it happens to be some different things, give us a little while, and you'll get what you want.
I want everybody to visualize a chicken walking right now, right? I'm sure you've all seen a barnyard chicken walking. There was one commercial that is in my mind that I think I have a picture of, and I will put up on the website so people can go see it. I picture a chicken in red earmuffs, and the chicken is what, Bob?
Oh, the snowstorm chicken. Yeah, we trained a chicken to walk uphill in a snowstorm wearing call it a muff or a collar, wearing earmuffs and a collar, a streaming collar. One of the big things was to get a fan blowing in the chicken's face, and it will accept it. But plodding up a hill with snow.
They did not do this using AI. They did not use any camera tricks. They taught this chicken to basically walk in slow motion, wouldn't you say?
Well, walk in rather stereotypic fashion. And this, by the way, was the last commercial I ever did. I did that all on my own, and I said I'm finished, and I've never done another commercial since.
So you had the coin shows, you were training trainers, you're moving all over the place, you're doing commercials. When did you start taking military contracts, and what did that look like for the company?
Well, I came from a military background, of course, with the Navy. And there were also other people involved, and we'll be talking about CIA anyway. So indeed, the CIA was involved, some of the Navy work that I had done before. So when I moved to ABE in '65, ABE was already negotiating to do military work. And it also included stuff with the CIA. And that involved most of the time working with animals, different kinds of animals at long distances, and maintaining some sort of control over the animal at these long distances. It also involved having the animals either picking things up or dropping things off, delivery, pick up and delivery. And most of the direction work is what we always call just A to B. You go from one point to another point. Now, it wasn't always that the animal returned to the same place. Sometimes it returned elsewhere. But again, some of the durations were long. Sometimes we had to control the animal's behavior for about 12 hours. And it had to be clandestine. It can't be anything really obvious. But guidance was always a big issue about how do you get an animal from A to B and then back again. And that was fun work. I enjoyed that particular part of it. The design of equipment. We used acoustics. We used visual controls. There were lots of ways that we communicated with the animal what it's supposed to do and when it's supposed to do it.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask a question. You can just give me the face, and I'll stop asking the question. But I know that, and I check all the time because I think this is fascinating. I know that some of the work you did with ravens is declassified now, and they were birds. I mean, this isn't dogs, people. These are ravens. They're wild caught ravens.
Well, they were collected from the wild as chicks, but we hand reared them.
So you're hand rearing these ravens and you're teaching them to carry something from A to B.
Yeah, or to bring it back from B to A.
And then it is assumed that you do not have control over the environment these birds are going to be.
Yeah, once it's out there, we no longer have control over what's happening out there. It's a matter of, if there's a predator or if it suddenly rains or, all sorts of things can happen in the open environment. If they happen, we have to prepare the animal to respond to that.
So he brought up a principle called generalization, where you're training these animals to do specific things, and then the animal itself, through the animal's intelligence, is generalizing to something else. Can you give an example?
Well, first off, everything started on small scale. Almost every project that we had animals working in enclosures beginning at about 12 by 12, 12 feet by 12 feet. And we would accomplish lots of the training in this very, very small space. And that means we would introduce a lot of distractions. We would make things, let's say, a little bit scary for the animal there, but do it very gently in a way where the animal can cope with it. But we would spend weeks and months in a relatively small space before we would move out. Now, this was really contrary to a lot of the training that was going on at the time, that most people wanted to get out there as fast as they can. That was such a big thing to get long distance. We were very confident that we could get the long distance. That's not the real issue. The real issue is to get the stimulus control, this reliance that the animal has on its ability to survive, to cope with anything that we would throw at it in a small environment. And a lot of this is a time issue. In a small environment, we can get many, many, many trials. In a large environment, we can get much fewer trials. So our challenge is to work within a small environment with lots of variations and teach the animal to cope with whatever variations occurred in these small environments before we would move out. Now, when we would move out, we would, again, be very, very gentle about it. And we would not keep asking for longer and longer distances. Sometimes it would be shorter distances, sometimes longer distances. We did not want the animal to be able to predict how far it was supposed to go out. Anyway, we did this with ravens, we did it with crows, we did it with gulls of different species, albatross, we did it with cormorants, owls and hawks and lots of other species. But again, the process was the same.
The process was the same. You're still using these principles. You're keeping data, and that's how you're figuring out what you need to change. Is that fair to say?
Yes. It measures our progress. We're, of course, always observing the bird. But the next thing is when we gave a signal to do something, how much time would elapse between when we gave the signal and the animal did what it's supposed to do? It's called latency, response latency. And we're always looking at response latency. And if the animal is reluctant or just doesn't start very fast, okay, we're doing something wrong. Something is happening, and we need to find out what before we go any further. We don't want the animal to fail. Now, the animal's going to fail enough anyway because of things that will happen during trials. But we don't want to set this animal up just to fail, especially early in training. We don't want to do that.
So I don't know if this is coming through to people and you can hear this about the culture, but they don't want the animal to fail. They're setting it up for success. They are real time analyzing the data they're getting back, the feedback they're getting back from this animal, and when it starts to hesitate and when it keeps performing at the level that they expect it to for whatever they're going to use it for. Nobody did that before them. This is like real time happening. Wow. Are you an animal trainer ready to sharpen your skills to a legendary level? Or a corporate leader looking for a fresh, powerful way to boost team dynamics, decision-making, and leadership? Discover Kirsten's Chicken Workshops, an immersive 5-day experience rooted in the science-based curated exercises of the legendary Bob and Marian Bailey. Train a live chicken using the principles of operant conditioning, like positive reinforcement. Why chickens? They're fast, honest teachers that instantly reveal where you need to improve your training skills. No fluff, just real results that transfer to dogs, horses, or any species you want to train, and even to leading people more effectively. Trainers call it life-changing. Dr. Bob Bailey himself endorses it as the ultimate mechanical skill builder. So visit Kirsten'sChickenWorkshops.com right now and sign up for the waitlist. Spots fill fast. Train a chicken, change the way you train and lead forever. Head to Kirsten'sChickenWorkshops.com today. So tell us more about what you did with dogs for the military, Bob.
We worked with scout dogs, mine detecting dogs, and that was always interesting because you had to select dogs that were appropriate to the task, looking for dogs that weren't barking all the time, although you could suppress, but it's really better to start with rather quiet dogs and be sure that if the dog does do any particular barking along the line, that you let the dog know that that was not acceptable. Now, we didn't have to punish other than we would suddenly just stop. The whole situation would stop. And that informed the dog after a while that if it made any noise, untoward noise that we didn't ask for, that suddenly the situation would stop. And given enough time and our selection of dogs, that the dog would become very quiet in its activity. That's especially true of scout dogs, that particularly in nighttime missions, and this was during Vietnam, that you don't want that dog out there barking or making any particular sounds that could locate where you were at the time. We also work with tunnel dogs. We work with a number of different type of militarily useful dogs. And again, that was fun. Now, I will say that our techniques were really quite different from the techniques that were being used at the time. Things were pretty harsh at the time. And we advised the people that we were working with that we saw that it was possible to avoid the very heavy-handed approach that a lot of people were routinely using. Now, that did not mean we never punished. We did not use aversives, but they were rare, and they had to do with survival of the individual dog or the handler of the dog. So when it was appropriate, we applied what a punishment, aversive, that was necessary. But that was so rare. It did not happen very often at all, because we found out as long as we were clear on what we were asking for, and we were consistent ourselves, that the dog caught on, and dogs were quiet, they did their jobs, and they maintained their decorum, if you will, in the field.
So I'm just picturing people's faces right now, because I know at this point, I feel like in the dog training world that we have two camps listening. One has seen this, they bought in and they see the value of this, and then there's some people that use shock collars that think maybe they could have done it faster or different. And I'm going to back up, and I'm not making a judgment on anybody, but I am going to back up and say or ask, were you picking dogs that perhaps that group of people wouldn't have picked? meaning you weren't trying to suppress behavior so much. We should bring up punishment.
Yes, I think I've already said something about punishment. We used it when appropriate, and we used appropriate punishments. And that might mean something as, let's say, easy and non-threatening as just a timeout. The whole situation stops. And after a while, the dog is used to doing things, and suddenly it can't do those things anymore. And the dog catches on. Oh, if I do thus and so, this whole situation stops. So the animal doesn't do that anymore because it has learned I gain reinforcement. I gain good stuff if I behave in a certain way. But there are some things that the dog really should not do. A tripwire dog, a dog that is trained to detect a wire or wires that are stretched across, that the dog should not play around with those. Even if the enemy were to put pieces of meat on those wires, you don't investigate those wires. You avoid them. You actually back up and you turn yourself sideways so the handler cannot pass by you and walk into those wires. You have a specific behavior that you go through. You don't investigate the wires. You just back up and let the handler solve the situation after that. But all of that can be done without the punishment, without the strong aversives that were used by so many at the time. And we were successful at this. But I would say, again, there was a lot of handlers who were risking their lives, and they didn't like it. They didn't trust the dog. The dog trained that way is a dog they didn't trust.
So I've seen that same phenomenon in some of the service dog industry with certain behaviors. So that is something that's out there and is prevalent. And I would like to kind of flip that on its head. And when I say that, I want to talk about learned helplessness. And I feel confident bringing this up because I feel that is something that I experienced early on with the improper use of punishment. When we say punishment, how would you define punishment, Bob?
Well, technically, there is a definition of punishment. It is a stimulus that reduces the rate of a behavior. I mean, it's really that simple.
So it decreases.
Now, if you don't do anything, if you put it on pure extinction, now that's not the same. There is no stimulus out there that you apply to the dog. That's punishment. But just a time out. And now there are people who argue, well, that's nearly the same as punishment. Well, okay, if you want to define it that way, that's up to you. But the technical definition is the application of a stimulus that causes a reduction of behavior.
Correct. Mm-hmm. So over time and used in a way where you're not clear with your learner, I'm going to use myself as an example, as a human. If you are punished or feel something is punished in certain animals, me in this case, you just stop offering behavior. It becomes a learned helplessness. So I want to say, how do you know that doesn't happen to dogs that have been trained that way with punishment as the main?
To me, that is an argument, an unwinnable argument to somebody convinced that this is the way to train.
But then it becomes a cultural thing.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily based in the data.
There is so much in training today that is not based on data. That is part of the culture of animal training, and not just with dog training, but lots of other things. And that's a point where I'm not going to waste my time anymore. I've done this long enough. I've pretty well quit any sort of argument I may have had. I don't like arguing. I discuss things, but I don't like arguing so much that if that's the way you want to do it, then so be it. That is your way of doing it. But it's, in most instances, it's not necessary.
And you hear him say it's not necessary. What I've heard Bob say over the years is that if you don't know how to reinforce, you have no business using punishment. Where I want to go with this is we're still doing what they did in the 40s. Our industry has not innovated that much at all. Would you agree with that?
No, I think it
with technology?
In terms of not using punishment, of just, you just don't use punishment. That is more now today than it was in the 40s and 50s and 60s. Believe me, that's real.
Okay.
But are the animals any better trained now than before? Now, there's a question. Maybe not any better trained.
In either camp.
Yeah, in either camp. The point, as far as I am concerned, it is that people learned a certain way to do things. And if they are open to learning a new way, then that is fine. Then we should teach them a new way, a different way. But if they are going to be totally wedded to traditional, old school training, that's up to them. I will not become involved.
Yeah, that's fair. You fought the good fight for a very long time,
Sure.
I would say. But so I'm going to wrap this up. But that's impressive, even in today's standard, what you guys were doing with military dogs back in the
60s.
In the 60s, that's impressive. And did you start them on chickens, the handlers that work dogs?
Some of them we did, and some of them we didn't. It depended on the amount of time that we had with the person. Sometimes they would be sent down for 3 or 4 days of activity with their dog, and they would leave. That doesn't allow enough time for the chicken. Sometimes they were there for 2 weeks, and we would spend 3, 4, 5 days with chickens before they would be introduced to their dogs, or kind of phase it in. A few days with chickens, and then a few days with half with chickens and half with dogs, and then finally with the dogs.
Interesting. I think it's all interesting, to be fair. So, well, thanks for tuning in, Bob. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Your stories, they amaze me. And I mean, I've heard a bunch of them, but there's always something that, just makes me stop and say, wow, they thought of that too, or, they took care of this too. And it just brings up more questions, so much more than one podcast can handle. So I hope you tune in for the next episode. Today, we covered a lot of ground. We traced how systemized care and consistency built a training legacy that stretched from Hot Springs, Arkansas, to SeaWorld. We saw how generalization and reliability turned chickens into TV stars and put ravens and dogs to work in some extraordinary settings. And we wrestled with the age-old debate around punishment versus reinforcement, landing on a truth that applies as much to people as it does to animals. Lasting change comes from clarity, consistency, and commitment to the data. That's a wrap for this episode. Keep questioning, keep observing, and remember, real success is built on creativity and compassion. We'll see you next time on Precision Animal Training. Thanks for listening to the Precision Animal Training Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen. It helps spread the word to more trainers like you. Share the show with a friend who could use a behavior breakthrough. Want to dive deeper into precision animal training? Head to kirstenschickenworkshops.com to learn about the workshops, sign up, or join the waitlist for the next series. That's kirstenschickenworkshops.com, where legendary science-based behavioral technology meets tomorrow's top trainers. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, remember, train a chicken, change the way you train forever. This show was edited and produced by Johnny Gwynn at Deep Fried Studios.